In the biblical account of Genesis, the fall of Adam and Eve is not only the beginning of human sin, it is also the beginning of a deep fracture in relationships, identity, and the order established by God. After the act of disobedience in the garden, man and woman are not simply punished. They enter into a new condition marked by hardship, pain, and conflict. Adam will have to work the ground through sweat and suffering. Eve will experience pain connected to motherhood and tension in her relationship with man. From that moment on, what was meant to be harmony becomes a place of struggle. This is where many see one of the spiritual roots of the modern conflict between the masculine and the feminine. The Bible shows that man and woman were not created to destroy each other, compete against each other, or dominate one another in a selfish way. They were created to live before God within an order that is not based on oppression, but on responsibility. When God is removed from that relationship, however, the balance is broken. The relationship is no longer built on love, service, and complementarity, but on a fight for control. From this perspective, some forms of modern feminism are not seen merely as a demand for dignity or justice, but as a spiritual reversal, no longer the restoration of woman's value before God, but the replacement of divine order with a logic of power. Woman is no longer encouraged to discover her identity in God, but to define herself against man, against the family, against motherhood, and against every biblical principle of mutual submission and responsibility. The problem, therefore, is not female dignity. A woman's dignity is fully biblical. Woman was created by God, loved by God, and is precious in the eyes of God. The problem begins when the idea of liberation is turned into spiritual rebellion, when equality is replaced by competition, and when biblical authority is described only as oppression. According to this view, the spiritual enemy does not always destroy openly. Often, he takes something true and turns it upside down. He takes the legitimate desire for value, respect, and justice, and transforms it into a battle against God's order. As a result, man is portrayed as toxic by nature, the family as a prison, motherhood as a loss of freedom, and the Christian faith as a tool of control. But when a civilization removes God from the center, even its most fundamental relationships begin to lose their shape. Man and woman no longer recognize each other as allies, but as opponents. The family is no longer seen as a place of protection and growth, but as a structure to be dismantled. Society no longer seeks harmony, but feeds division. The Christian message, however, does not call man to crush woman, nor woman to rebel against man. It calls both to return under the authority of God. Man is called to lead with love, sacrifice, and responsibility, not with arrogance. Woman is called to live out her strength not as domination, but as grace, wisdom, and faithfulness to the Lord. True healing does not come from a war between the sexes, but from returning to Christ. Only in Him does man stop using authority as selfish power, and woman stop seeking value through rebellion. Only in Him is identity restored, order purified, and the relationship between man and woman able to become what it was meant to be, not a fight for control, but a communion before God. Christianity does not deny the value of woman. On the contrary, it protects it from every worldly distortion. But it also reminds us that no true freedom is born from rebellion against God. When freedom loses truth, it becomes confusion. When empowerment loses humility, it becomes domination. When identity loses Christ, it becomes ideology. For this reason, the issue is not merely cultural or political. It is spiritual. The question is not simply, who should be in charge? The deeper question is, are we still willing to recognize the order of God? Because where God is rejected, man and woman end up fighting each other. But where Christ is placed back at the center, what sin has divided can once again be ordered, healed, and redeemed.